I'm Perry Miller. I'm the president and CEO of the Capital Region Airport Commission, and that commission is responsible for the operation and management of Richmond International Airport. Black History Month is a period of reflection. It and reflection gives the brain an opportunity to stop and think about what has happened in the past, right? So you can ask yourself critical questions about decisions that's been made in our society, how those decisions have affected generations of people, and to this day still impacts uh, people presently, and then to sort out all of the feelings that are associated with both the positive and negative impacts of those decisions, and being a citizen, a country that has systematically disparaged African Americans specifically, and people of color in general. So it should be a period of reflection and how our contributions to society can be celebrated and embraced to build the confidence in us that's needed to to magnify those contributions and do even more. And I think that's what it should be about, a period of reflection. Yeah, I had two uncles that exposed me to aviation, you know, uh, in my earlier parts of my life. My uncle Jardine, he took me to an RC airfield, radio control airplane airfield, probably when I was 6 or 7 year old. So the memory is vague, but it's still there. What I do recall is that he was the only African American on that field with a remote control airplane. And there were a lot uh, of people that that was inquiring him about his aircraft. He had he had built a replica of the Red Baron aircraft by himself and installed all of the controls and radio equipment as an African American. So he had uh, a high degree of understanding of aeronautics and engineering to build that aircraft from scratch. And people wanted to know where he bought it. And when he said I built it, it was just the looks on the faces were ones of disbelief. And I remember seeing that plane because it was a it was a bi-wing plane, and it was painted red, had the black uh, cross on it. So it was a magnificent model, and it drew the attention of everyone there. And so that was my first exposure to aviation. Didn't do anything other than create a feeling in me of something important was going on with, actually it's my uncle's uncle that had that airplane. My second uncle Leroy took me to air shows in my teen and preteen years uh, to see uh, the Blue Angels. That was the featured aviators of the day, and those air shows took place at what was then known as Ellington Air Force Base, and I think he had spent time there because he had been in the Air Force in his more youthful years, and he wanted me to be exposed to what he had grown to love, flight and aviation. Even though he never had an opportunity to fly a plane, he just loved the idea of being in and around an airport and around aircraft. And I think um, I absolutely loved seeing those planes roar through the air and I absolutely loved going to the air shows until it became uncool to hang around with adults, right? I guess that was around my teenage years. But what's interesting is that later on in my life, after I graduated from college with a degree in airway science, I wound up being the general manager of that very airport that my uncle took me to as a youth, Ellington Field. It was, I guess it was like full circle. I had been exposed to aviation as a youth, and here I was, the general manager of the airplane where I had grown to grow an appreciation for aviation. Yeah, I think bias is the biggest challenge we overcome, and how we overcome that. That's the, as my mother used to say, the $64,000 question. But I think it starts with education. I mean, the just I have recently come to learn that there's a group called the Daughters of the Confederacy that essentially established a curriculum for the United States education system. And you know that that curriculum does the same thing that those television shows I just talked about did. They pitted African Americans as shifty, murderous, ghetto, or jailbound, and that they made no beneficial contributions to this American society. So it has to start there. It has to start with, you know, the education system that an education system that gives the contributions to all people of color that help build this country to bring them to the forefront so that the people that comprise these United States uh, can know who they are and what they've done to advance the society. That's critically important. So I've said this before in other interviews, and it may sound a little hokey, but I think that what I value most is helping someone else, achieve their potential in this profession, right? If I can convince one person to do well in high school or graduate from college or pursue a master's degree, gain an accreditation, then I feel like I've made a contribution worthy to be proud of because I can't imagine what might have become of me if those two people I mentioned previously had invested time in my life to, expose me to aviation. So, you know, I think that, for me, my investment of time in some African American or some person of color's life to let them know that you have an opportunity to be someone, then man, I'm excited about that. Man, I don't think there's anything better. No financial reward can make me feel better than seeing some young person, that I've helped, be successful. They don't have to pay me, don't have to say thank you. But if I get to see them in a seat where they are making decisions that affect the lives of others, then I feel good about that. I said earlier that I can train for competency, but I can't train for commitment. What I would say today is do everything you can uh, to be competent, right? Because you are competing against people who will do anything, almost anything, to get the job that you are struggling to get as well. So, you know, as you are being interviewed and you already have, you know, the bias that we've described to contend against, you you gotta be able to convey your competencies very well. And you've got to be able to convey your commitment right away, right? Because you know that that first few seconds of the interview, you've got to help the person opposite overcome their fear. So it comes with practice. You got to practice interviewing. You got to practice looking at yourself in the mirror, talking to people. Uh, One of the things I had to overcome is speaking to someone without this right here. See that crease? That tends to alarm people that you know I'm being shifty, perhaps. But for me, it's just the process of I am thinking intently about how to process information. But to someone that that's unknowing and biased already against me, you gotta figure out how to portray the poker face, just to make someone opposite you feel comfortable enough to have a conversation with you to understand who you are. So build that competency up and build up, you know, the commitment to make yourself better at conveying information.